Hey everybody, what's up? This is Retrokid Reviews back in the figure set to show off the Marvel Legends Model 20 already in the MCU pose, Iron Man, and the Chip Zdarsky last half of the wave, but really the Marvel Legends, I believe Marvel Knights, Mindless One Build-A-Figure wave, Daredevil. So let's start with, not Tony, we'll get to him later on, and do some size comparisons and overall look of the sculpt for Matt over here. So you can already see a big difference when you size him up with the Daredevil Elektra from that same Chip Zdarsky run. I think she was in a separate wave. I may or may not have done a full review, so card 2 as per usual. And getting off the top here, the painting and sculpting on Matt over here is fantastic. We'll do some comparisons with Elektra in a minute, but body proportion wise with the hand jobber army Build-A-Figure that I've had since the Into the Spider-Verse first wave from the movies, not bad. You can definitely see a big difference from sculpt over the years. Obviously pinless joints with the jobber, and obviously the only thing pinned here is the shoulder guard. Shoulder piece that's more armored, and that was like of the art style during the comic. So with that said, let's get to Matt before we get to comparing him with his wife Elektra. Everything about this figure screams pretty good, right down to it. I forgot the exact name for this staff piece, so let me know in the comments for that. So we're gonna put that aside. Everything you see on Matt is as is in the packaging. My apologies that I didn't get the package in time, so go to my birthday haul review for the preview for the box. And the only big difference is I'm trying to figure out the holstering with the billy clubs right here. Aside from that, the drop leg style holster for the billy club is kind of standard issue for a lot of eras of Matt's costumes as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen himself. The thing I noticed in the birthday haul of how really damn good and detailed the figure's head sculpt is. For a while, I thought the beard was going to be reused from a G.I. Joe figure. I think maybe Outback or a lot of other bearded guys, maybe a Cobra. But when you get to the party in the back of the hair, you can definitely tell he just came back from prison vibes, because I think that was main story he was doing before getting back into the costume here. Legs down is the same situation we'll get to comparing to Elektra. All new sculpt, like down to even like the double jointing knees. They are absolutely breaking right around here on the knee and the cup. They're breaking a lot of kayfabe here. No swivel joint on the thighs here. There's ankle pivot like usual for the legs. And like I said, it's already pinless on the elbows, but double jointed elbows as well. I don't know if Matt has a... No, it doesn't look like he has butterfly joints. That would be actually pretty beneficial, but also makes sense for this type of armor. He was going into, I guess, more holy war fights with, like, the hand by the end of that run. The ab crunch is about the same. It's very clicky, very good. It clicks back and forth very responsively, so there's nothing really going on there. No alt head sculpt to see a bearded Matt without the... I guess without the horns, and just see what he would look like on his downtime, which will literally head by to this end of the run. I think his scarf is glued on. It's not very floaty, which gives me the impression you might have to reheat it down if you're going to use this body mold for customs later down the road. The billy clubs are a pretty standard issue from previous Daredevil figures. The one big thing I like is how colored it is. I think this is probably reuse. If there's any reuse here, it's probably going to be the billy club from the armored 90s Daredevil, which as of this recording, I just forgot to bring downstairs. So it wouldn't be my figure review series without comparing with a figure that I'm actually talking about. So with that all said, we'll get to head tilt before we get to the comparisons, because we got another figure to go to and more size comparisons. So it's gonna be one of those big double reviews, just letting you know in advance. Main reason why I'm doing this as a double review instead of my Beetlejuice double review with the original movie. Kind of couldn't get around to it, and also I have a very busy schedule ahead of me next week due to the grounds of going to my brother's bachelor party. So yeah, it's gonna be one of those kinds of weeks where I might be skipping content, so sorry in advance for my subscribers. So for the head tilt, pretty good. It could be the beard sculpt that's holding a lot down. There's not a lot of up you can get with Matt down here, but like most heavy sculpted figures, he's gonna look down pretty well when you do perches and stuff like that, showing off just mainly the fear he'll have in this kind of like aura, a presence for the outfit. So as for the comparisons to sculpt, this will be a lot of reviewing of what I've said about Daredevil, Electro over here, about the same. Again, I'm very happy that she and many female body molds later, probably for the rest of the Marvel Legends era, is going to have double jointed elbows, because they have been sorely needing. Now, if we could just get a decent diaphragm, or probably ab crunch like the guys over here, that would be just pretty good. But the big difference is not really much. Aside from being completely different sex molds, obviously, in the male and female portion. Hand grips are about the same. I don't think in her copy as well, I don't think she got an extra hand, so basically what you see is what you get with the two of them. And I'm going to be honest, they look pretty dope as a couple. The only thing I just mentioned, like I said, there is no floatiness with Matt Scarf. There is a lot of floatiness. You can even take off on Elektra's. And I think she might have had old head sculpt. It's been a while since I've had this figure, so I'm gonna go dig for that box probably off cam next time. So we're gonna put them aside to one more, and this is gonna be the big one. Iron Man, this is the Model 20. Now, a lot of conflicting stuff I've heard is that it's not the actual Model 20, it's a Model 24 later on in the comics. Also, there have been also people that said that this particular armor was a OC made for, I think, Phase 1 Marvel by the time they made it to the first Avengers. So, again, your mileage may vary. Even so, for a gloss, very glossy, we'll get to the gloss in a minute, but for a very in-name only, probably Model 20 series armor, it's really good. The battery discs you see here on the tool belts is very of the comics. I don't think there was never a single use of battery discs in the MCU, so there's a knock there to make it more comic-oriented if you want to put it with comic Avengers. The neck tilt is actually really good. There is neck articulation there. You're gonna have to really check with it, but the head can go all the way up, which really helps for flight poses and stuff like that. If you saw my Instagram, there was a lot of flight poses for angles like this. I can't flight pose on the fly, in case you could tell, even when I was filming. For most of the fist, you can kind of do the I think the rocket disc thing you saw in I think the first Iron Man. Yeah, there's a lot of poses you can go with it. Speaking of the set poses, there is a double jointed knee, but it is very hindered with the thigh piece, mainly because of the gloss, most likely. Speaking of the thighs, there is thigh swivel. And there is a bit of an ankle pivot. I kind of forced it, but again, these, I guess, armor flaps are kind of in the way, because it's the same story here with the hands. And that's kind of like the only handful of gripes you have. For the shoulder pads, they're very clicked on. I think they're pegged in, and you can absolutely reassemble, disassemble for like specific poses. There is butterfly joints in the chest rig of the armor, but again, much like most of this armor, it is very hindered, mainly because, again, the sculpt. Speaking of, the sculpt is amazing. Going to the painting and sculpt of this version of the figure and this armor, it's amazing. I did show off maybe one photo of the blast effects you see over there. The hand options are surprisingly good. This is going to take off from the base one, and it slides out pretty easily, and you get a clear picture of what you're dealing with when it comes to the flaps. So for anyone who has previous armors from, like, say, the comics or MCU, Tony's in the past, it could, if you can line up the art style and obviously the paint apps on this, you could probably get him to grip a little bit easier and probably have the same repulsor palm attacks from probably other previous better effects parts of armors. Speaking of, there's not just one peg here, there's little pegs here at the boots. The boots themselves are very contoured, very ergonomic. Sorry to put nerve terminology, but it's holding in a lot better than you think. Time will tell. Obviously, this is a Legends figure. They do get loose joints as time goes on, especially with the gloss on the armor. Outside of that, the only time there's real gloss is really on the reds of the figure. Not really much on the arc reactor, and not too much on the helmet itself. Outside of that, the back of the figure looks pretty good. This is the fin dorsals. I think this is more of a flight. I think this, again, the thing about this figure from what I've heard is either this was a anti-magic user armor back in like the 90s, or again, because of the back over here, gives you a lot of evidence to support that this was probably a flight, upgraded flight armor just in time for, I believe, Phase 1's Avengers. So again, your mileage may vary. So with that all being said, we didn't get to side comparisons, hence the tub is with me off cam. Here he is with Emma Frost. You think this is a weird clash? Not really. They had a fake marriage during the last days of Fall of X. So it's really pretty awkward to see an astonishing Emma and an early-ish model 20s Tony in the same room. I would love a Marvel Legends case. I would love to see them try to do a Sentinel Buster flight suit Iron Man, because there's no way they're going to do an actual Sentinel Buster. I would hazard a guess and say it'd be twice the size of this guy right here on the Titan Heroes front, but that's going to be a HasLab of its own making. So let's get a few more size comparisons to close out the video. This is going to be him with a few Avengers I have on standby, who are also recently X-Men. Yeah, this is him with Ms. Comic Verse, Ms. Marvel, not TV Marvel, Ms. Marvel. My apologies to the Mon Villani out there. And Comic Verse, since we're 2 for 2 for that. Carol, Ms. Marvel, sorry, Captain Marvel, my apologies. Her and Tony are actually in, I think, a current roster in the Avengers books nowadays. Could be under Jason Aaron, so my apologies if I got that wrong. I'll leave the main run's title and stuff like that in the wiki down below. And last up, to totally not make this look Phase 4 as all hell, sorry in advance, I do not have a support. Hang on. And this is why we keep Nerf blasters, kids, for figure support, hopefully. So let's try to blend that ever so slightly. That is way off kiltered, my bad in advance. Shang-Chi from his MCU appearance, and already you can tell he blends well on the Daredevil side of things than he does on the Avengers side of things, so that's kind of how it is. Again, this is just a showcase of how it would look in like an MCU kind of setting, and you can kind of see it from there. So overall, with all that said, for both these figures, let me just rate Matt's in a minute. Wow, there's a lot of figures on the side. Okay, so for Matt, I'm going to go ahead and give it a strong 10 out of 10. This is a really damn good sculpt. It helps me, and I enjoy it more because I was reading the last half of the Chips of Darcy run, and it was cool to have now both of these as a power couple and just basically be matchies or whatever pen names. Can you tell I'm not a couples guy? Long story short, this is really going to be a great way to display the relationship and how it was in the comics, so that's really cool if you're into that kind of thing. As for the sculpt itself, it is downright amazing. There's no drop-down hips. That actually would have helped it a lot. I guess we learned something new every day. There is kind of a thigh swivel. It's barely there. It's probably because of the new sculpt that kind of escaped me from it. Thing is, if there is going to be reuse for this body mold for Daredevil figures, I would love to keep, I want to say, the thigh gaps here for the thigh joints to basically use for like the black suit, Frank Miller pajama pants kind of run for the early 80s. That would be pretty cool for like maybe an anniversary of that era of the run, if anything, coming up. Outside of that, yeah, strong 9.5 out of 10 vibes. The only big concern is probably going to be the Billy Clubs, and not really much other than, I'm still right about the thigh swivel, so... Oh, you know what? It's probably shin swivel. There we go. Okay, that's what I was messing up with. So if it had shin swivel, that would have absolutely got this a 10. So for Tony, it's going to be down to a straight 9. Again, mainly because I don't know too much about this version of the armor. I would love, this would have been automatic 10 if it got an alt Tony head, so I can know what era of the comics or movies this was. I love the repulsor blast. I wish I had time to talk about them. They clipped in pretty easily. The same thing problem is with the hands going forward, which is why it's knocking down to 9, is the armor flap getting in the way. So even if you want to do like repulsor blast poses from like either the comics or the movies, it's going to be hard because you're going to be that crookeded in. And the There is rotation ball joints right there to assist it, but it just looks like he's hooking you instead of actually blasting you. So that's going to be a hindrance, even for guys that do like stop motions and stuff like that with this figure. It's going to be hard. Outside of that, the thighs are good. There's no shin swivel, but you can definitely tell that it's not pinless. This is really more actuated to be more of the continuity of what the armor would be in the comics and stuff like that. And again, boot swivel would be pretty good, but given the very sculpted, heavy specifics this armor would be, it's the same situation I would be having here for the Daredevil in the back. Would be cool if there was a boot swivel. The ankle pivot is actually a lot tighter than it looks, because as you can see, it does not need support in the back for Matt over there, so that's why it's still keeping the high marks. Outside of that, for both of these figures, I think they're in build-a-figure prices, mainly because, again, this is the retro wave for Iron Man, and obviously this is building into Miles one for both $30 a pop. Depending on the day, depending on which era of Marvel you want to put in the collection, they're both worth a pickup, in my opinion. I want to say Tony is barely edging out, mainly because I don't have an Iron Man 6-inch in general throughout the history of my channel. I think every time I had to use Tony for like news or whatever for MCU, I had to go to the very early phases, like I think Iron Man 2 3/4 inch Marvel Legends that I got on vacation literally a decade ago. So, well, even like almost 15 years ago now. So you can definitely tell this was a well-earned upgrade. If you're in it for upgrade purposes or like a certain type of era of like 90s Iron Man armor, it's worth the pickup. It's a good head sculpt done for all Tony heads. For people who do have previous armors with Tony heads, it plays well. It just shows up what era you want him to be in. I think Rodimus Prime gave it his high marks also on his review, so last card's there if there's any throughout that. And my final thoughts for Daredevil, Marvel Knights Mindless One Wave, Chip Zdarsky costume. It's amazing. Like, it is really solid. I wish there was a boot cut here for the hand wraps that they're using here for the ninja boots here. Would be pretty cool. Also, it would be pretty cool to see these legs again, and if they use this figure for a Frank Miller era figure, either custom or Hasbro themselves. I know I'm also talking about a double review of Marvel Legends stuff where there was a HasLab stream as of this recording, so probably highlights above. And with that all being said, and probably a script with these figures, wow, you could definitely tell the size comparison. Yeah, the body proportions are surprisingly higher than the looks. This is them just standing, by the way. Yeah, so go to Tony over here to my previous video, which was my birthday haul video. Basically talk about these two figures in the box. Go to Matt over here to my previous short, getting ready for Critical Role episode 106 to now 107 will come next week. And yeah, go to these hands over here to sub the channel, hit the notification bell down below, and wish me very much luck for my brother's bachelor party next weekend. So with that all being said, sorry that I didn't have time to do the Beetlejuice review along with the original movie from the 80s. I will try my best to put that in the Halloween rotation, if anything, along with my Shaun of the Dead. The Cornetto trilogy is going to be the new Halloween cinematic universe series they're going to be following. Hopefully 3 movies, now turned to 5, mainly because of catching up to Tim Burton, so wouldn't be my channel if I had to get some stakes in there. So with that all being said, take care, subscribe, and this is Retrokid review saying, have these guys ever squared off in a Civil War arc? I could have sworn they did, right?